The lights dim, and the crowd settles into a low murmur. Hundreds of faces blur together in the audience, all waiting for the next performance. Another hopeful dreamer stepping onto a stage that has crushed more dreams than it has created. The talent show set glows under bright white lights, polished and intimidating, designed to expose every flaw, every weakness. The judges lean toward one another. Their voices are low, barely audible, but their body language speaks loudly. A whisper, a raised eyebrow, a quiet laugh. One judge leans back in their chair, arms crossed, lips curling into a small smirk, dismissive, confident, final. They haven't heard a single note yet. The camera slowly pans across the panel, lingering just long enough to let the moment sink in. This isn't excitement. This isn't curiosity. This is judgment delivered silently, casually, without apology. Then the camera cuts to the stage. She stands alone beneath the lights. A young black girl, centered in the vastness of the room, hands gently clasped in front of her. Her shoulders are relaxed, but her breath gives her away. Slow, controlled, nervous. She scans the audience briefly, then fixes her gaze forward, not at the judges, but just past them, as if she's already somewhere else, somewhere safer. Somewhere inside the music? They judged her before she sang a single note. The words hang in the air as the audience shifts in their seats. A few polite claps ripple through the crowd, thin, uncertain, restrained. No cheers, no excitement, just expectation and doubt. The judge with the smirk glances down at the paper in front of them, already writing something. Another judge tilts their head, unimpressed. One taps their pen impatiently against the desk. One smile said everything, and it wasn't kind. The girl swallows. She adjusts her stance slightly, grounding herself. This isn't her first time being underestimated. She's felt this look before, the look that says you don't belong here. Prove it, surprise us, or disappear. The music hasn't started yet. Silence stretches. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the room is holding its breath, but not for her. For the moment, she might fail. The camera zooms in on her face. Her eyes close. And in that instant, everything changes. The background noise fades. The whispers stop. The smirk freezes mid-expression. What happened next silenced the entire room. A single note is about to rise. One no one is prepared for. One that will rewrite every assumption made in the last 30 seconds. One that will turn judgment into shock and doubt into disbelief. The music begins to swell. The lights sharpen. The camera cuts right before her mouth opens. Text fades onto the screen, slow and deliberate. They weren't ready for this. Cut to black. Before she ever stepped onto this stage, before the lights, the judges, and the whispers, she was just a girl with a voice and a dream. She grew up in a quiet town where big opportunities didn't come often, but music did. Music filled the small spaces of her life. It echoed through her bedroom late at night, softly at first, then stronger as her confidence grew. It lived in the walls of her church, where her voice learned how to soar. It followed her into school halls, talent nights, and moments when singing was the only way she felt truly seen. She didn't grow up imagining fame. She grew up imagining expression. From a young age, she knew music wasn't just sound, it was safety. When words failed, melody spoke for her. When the world felt too loud, singing made it quiet again. Every note she practiced was a step towards something bigger. Even if she didn't know exactly what that something was yet, this talent show wasn't just a performance. It was a door. But it was also a test, because this stage had a history. A long one. A history of fast judgments and harsh critiques. Of performers being labeled before they were heard. Of expectations shaped by appearances instead of ability. Some contestants walked on stage already celebrated. Others had to fight just to be taken seriously. The judges were known for it. Sharp tongues. Raised brows. expressions that could shatter confidence in seconds. They'd seen thousands of performers, and they weren't afraid to let boredom show, especially when they thought they already knew how the story would end. And the crowd? They weren't cruel, but they weren't convinced either. They watched with folded arms and cautious applause, waiting to be impressed, prepared to move on if they weren't. Backstage, she felt all of it. The noise, the pressure, the weight of expectation pressing down harder with every passing second. Cameras moved quietly around her, catching the moment before everything changed. A close-up of her face. Her eyes were steady, but inside, her thoughts raced. What if they don't listen? What if I disappoint everyone who believes in me? What if this is my only chance? Fear stood beside her, but it wasn't alone. Hope was there too. So was determination. She reminded herself why she was here. Not for the judges, not for the crowd, but for the little girl who sang into a hairbrush when no one was watching. For the moments she was told to be realistic. For every time music carried her through when nothing else could. This stage didn't define her, but tonight she would let her voice speak for her. She took one last breath and walked toward the light. Before the lights ever found her, before anyone knew her name, she learned what it felt like to be invisible. Not ignored completely, but seen just enough to be dismissed. As a child, she didn't announce herself loudly. She didn't demand attention. She listened more than she spoke, observed more than she interrupted. While other kids chased noise, she chased notes, melodies humming softly in her head, rhythms tapping quietly in her chest. Music found her early. She sang before she understood what singing meant. In the back seat of the car, in the shower, in a bedroom where the walls carried secrets no one else could hear. Her voice wasn't polished yet, but it was honest. It carried emotion long before it carried confidence. But the world didn't always hear what she heard. At school, talent didn't always look like her. Performers were expected to fit a certain image, a certain sound, a certain story. When she raised her hand for auditions, she was often met with hesitation. When she sang, reactions were polite but restrained. "You're good," they'd say. "Not great, not special. Just good." Sometimes it wasn't even about her voice. It was about how she looked, the way she carried herself, the assumptions people made before she opened her mouth, the quiet suggestion that maybe she didn't fit the role they had already imagined, that maybe someone else would be a safer choice. She learned early that doubt doesn't always speak out loud. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it nods, sometimes it simply moves on. There were moments, small, sharp moments that stayed with her. Being passed over for solos, she practiced endlessly for. Watching someone else get chosen while she stood quietly to the side. Hearing whispers that weren't meant to hurt, but did anyway. She's not what we're looking for. She doesn't really stand out. She's talented, but followed her everywhere. Yet every time she felt pushed aside, she went back to the one place that never rejected her music. At home, her voice was free. Her family noticed what others missed. They heard the emotion in her tone, the strength growing with every year, the way she could make a simple melody feel heavy with meaning. They encouraged her when she doubted herself. They reminded her that not everyone recognizes greatness when it's quiet. When she sang for them, she wasn't overlooked. She was believed in. Her mother would pause whatever she was doing just to listen. Her family would sit still, letting the room fill with sound, letting her finish before speaking, because they knew moments like that deserved respect. Outside those walls, it was different. Negativity has a way of creeping in when dreams grow big. The more she talked about singing seriously, the more opinions appeared, unsolicited and unfiltered. Be realistic. Have a backup plan. Very few people make it. They didn't say she couldn't do it. They just said it like they knew she wouldn't. And slowly, those words stacked up. Not enough to stop her, but enough to weigh on her. Enough to make her question herself on the nights when practice felt lonely and progress felt invisible. Still, she sang. In church, where her voice learned how to rise without fear. In small school events, where the applause was scattered but sincere. In quiet moments alone, where she practiced not for recognition, but for survival. Music became more than a dream. It became defiance. Every overlooked moment sharpened her focus. Every doubt forced her to grow stronger, not louder. She didn't chase validation, she built resilience. She learned to trust her voice, even when no one else seemed to. But there was always that feeling. That invisible line she wasn't supposed to cross. The feeling that people had already decided where she belonged, and it wasn't on a big stage. Not under bright lights. Not in front of judges who had seen it all and expected nothing from her. They didn't think she belonged here. That belief followed her like a shadow. And yet, here she was, standing on the edge of a moment that could change everything. This talent show wasn't just another audition. It wasn't another room where she'd wait quietly while someone else was chosen. It was the biggest stage she had ever stepped toward, and she knew what was at stake. If she failed, she wouldn't just confirm their doubts. She'd confirm her own fears. But if she succeeded, she would rewrite the story they had already written for her. She carried every overlooked moment with her, not as a burden, but as fuel. Not quite, every door that didn't open. They shaped her. And now, they had brought her here, to the moment before the stage, to the breath before the note, to the chance to finally be heard, not because someone allowed it, but because she earned it. And whether they were ready or not, her voice was. The moment her name is called, time seems to stretch. The backstage noise fades behind her as she steps forward, the curtain parting like a quiet warning. The light spills onto the stage, bright and unforgiving, washing away the safety of the shadows she'd just left behind. This is it. Every step she takes echoes louder than it should. Not because the room is noisy, but because it's not. The silence presses in from all sides, heavy with expectation, thick with unspoken conclusions already forming in the minds of everyone watching. She reaches the center of the stage and stops. For a brief moment, the room acknowledges her with applause, but it's cautious, polite, measured. Hands clap because that's what people are supposed to do, not because they're moved to. The sound rises, then quickly fades, leaving behind a low hum of uncertainty. She feels it immediately. Not rejection, but hesitation. Her eyes lift toward the judges. One of them raises an eyebrow slightly, as if surprised not by her talent, but by her presence. Another leans back in their chair, arms crossed, posture loose in a way that suggests disinterest rather than comfort. Papers are shuffled. A pen taps against the desk. Then there's the smirk. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable if you aren't looking for it. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that says, "I've already made up my mind." It flickers across the judge's face and disappears just as quickly, but the damage is done. No words are spoken. None are needed. Another judge glances sideways, catching the smirk, and responds with a look of their own, a shared expression. A silent exchange that lasts less than a second but carries the weight of a verdict. She notices. Performers always do. Because body language speaks louder than feedback, louder than criticism, louder than applause. A raised eyebrow can wound deeper than a harsh comment ever could. A dismissive posture can tell you exactly where you stand, before you then had the chance to stand at all. She keeps her face calm, but inside, something tightens. This is the moment she's felt her whole life, the pause before dismissal. The second where you realize you are not being evaluated, but assumed. Measured against expectations you didn't create. Judged against standards that were never meant to include you. The audience watches closely. Some lean forward, curious. Others shift in their seats, already distracted. A few glance at the judges, reading their reactions before deciding how they themselves should feel. That's how it works. Judgment spreads quietly. She stands alone under the lights, aware of every camera, every breath, every heartbeat. The stage feels bigger now, louder, colder, and suddenly, she's not just here to sing, she's here to convince. Convince them she belongs. Convince them they're wrong. Convince them she's worth listening to. The host asks a question. She answers calmly, respectfully. Her voice is steady, but she can feel the tremor beneath it. The judges nod, but without warmth, without curiosity. One flips a page. Another glances at the clock. Still no one has heard her sing, and yet the weight of judgment already presses down on her shoulders. It's amazing how quickly a room can decide who you are. Before the music, before the note, before the truth. She takes her position. The microphone stands silently in front of her, waiting. The band is ready. The cue is coming. This is the space where confidence is tested, not by failure, but by indifference. She breathes in slowly. She reminds herself of every moment that led her here. Every room where she was underestimated. Every time someone looked at her the same way these judges are looking now. She survived that before. But this time, the stakes are higher. Because this isn't a classroom or a church or a small local stage. This is a place where opinions are broadcast. Where first impressions become headlines. Where one smirk can define a story before it's even told. The audience quiets further. The tension tightens. And in that silence, she feels it all, the doubt in the room. The skepticism. The subtle resistance to believing in her. It weighs on her chest, heavy but familiar. This is what it feels like to be judged before you're heard. Not rejected loudly, but dismissed quietly. The music cue is seconds away now. She closes her eyes, not to escape, but to focus. To shut out the expressions, the glances, the body language that has tried to shrink her before she's even begun. Because in just a moment, none of that will matter. In just a moment, only one thing will speak, her voice. And whether they're ready or not, they're about to listen. The music begins almost shyly. A soft introduction drifts through the room, gentle, restrained, careful. Not the kind of opening that demands attention, but the kind that invites it. The sound is subtle, barely rising above the silence, like a question being asked instead of a statement being made. She opens her eyes. Her posture changes, not dramatically, but decisively. Her shoulders settle. Her grip loosens. This is no longer the girl standing under judgment. This is the singer stepping into her space. Then she sings. The first note is quiet, controlled, emotionally precise. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It simply exists steady and honest, filling the room without forcing its way in. The sound is warm, grounded, carrying a depth that wasn't expected and a vulnerability that can't be taught. Something in the room shifts. The audience stills. A cough dies halfway through. A phone lowers. A whispered comment never gets finished. The low hum of distraction fades, replaced by something rare: attention. Real attention. Her voice doesn't overpower the music. It weaves through it. Each word lands clearly, intentionally, like she knows exactly where it belongs. There's no trembling now, no hesitation. Only presence. The judges look up. Not all at once, but gradually, instinctively, as if pulled by something they didn't see coming. One judge straightens slightly. Another stops tapping their pen. Eyes that moments ago carried boredom now carry focus. The smirk begins to disappear. Not suddenly, slowly. The corners of the judge's mouth relax. The casual confidence fades, replaced by something more cautious. Something closer to curiosity. The look of someone realizing they may have been wrong, but not ready to admit it yet. She continues. The second line carries more weight. The emotion deepens, not louder, but fuller. There's a story in her tone. Something lived in, something earned. It's not flashy. It's not showy. It's real. The audience leans in almost without realizing it. Heads tilt. Faces soften. The room feels smaller now, more intimate, like the sound has wrapped itself around every seat. This is no longer background noise. This is connection. Her breathing is steady, intentional. Each phrase flows into the next with quiet confidence. She's not performing at the room anymore. She's performing with it. And then she reaches the turning point. The music swells just slightly, hinting at what's coming. It's subtle, but unmistakable. A build, a lift, a breath held just a second longer than before. The judges sense it. One leans forward, not because they're impressed yet, but because they're unsure. Because something is happening that wasn't part of their expectation. Because this performance is no longer following the path they assumed it would. She closes her eyes again. And then she hits it. The note rises powerful, clear, and undeniable. Not forced, not shouted, perfectly placed. It cuts through the room like a truth that can't be ignored. Gasps ripple through the audience. Eyes widen, mouths part. The camera cuts rapidly judge to judge, audience member to audience member. Shock, surprise, disbelief. The judge who smirked now sits completely still, eyes locked on the stage, expression frozen somewhere between astonishment and recalculation. This wasn't supposed to happen. That note wasn't just impressive. It was commanding. She holds it not too long, not too short. Just enough to let it sink in. Just enough to make everyone feel it in their chest before gently releasing it back into the room. Silence follows. Not the awkward kind, the stunned kind. For a split second, no one moves, no one breathes. It's as if the room is collectively processing what it just heard, rearranging assumptions, rewriting judgments, adjusting expectations in real time. One judge leans forward now openly, elbows on the desk, eyes narrowed in focus. Not doubt. Analysis. Respect. Another nods slowly, almost unconsciously. The audience begins to react, not with applause yet, but with energy. Murmurs of disbelief. Hands covering mouths. People turning to each other as if to say, "Did you hear that?" She continues singing, but now the room belongs to her. Every note after that carries authority. Confidence blooms where tension once lived. The fear that weighed on her moments ago has transformed into momentum. She's not proving herself anymore. She's declaring herself. That wasn't just a note, it was a statement. A statement that said, "You were wrong to doubt me." A statement that said, "I belong here." A statement that said, "Listen now." And they do. Every single one of them. The judges are no longer watching casually. They're engaged. The audience is no longer uncertain. They're invested. The stage that once felt cold now feels alive, charged with possibility. She stands taller. Not because she's seeking approval, but because she's found her footing. The room has changed. And so has the story. Because from this moment on, nothing about this performance will be predictable. Nothing about her will be underestimated again. And the best part? She's only just begun. The music begins to rise, not suddenly but deliberately. The arrangement opens up, expanding like a horizon coming into view. The soft restraint that carried the beginning of the song starts to lift, revealing what has been waiting underneath all along. This is the moment the song has been moving toward. The moment she has been moving toward. Her voice grows not louder at first, but stronger. There's a new confidence now, unmistakable. Each note carries intention, each phrase shaped with care. She's no longer easing the room into belief. She's leading it there. The song approaches its peak. You can feel it before it arrives. The audience feels it too. Bodies shift forward in seats. Hands tighten around armrests. Eyes stay unblinking, afraid to miss even a second. The air itself feels charged, humming with anticipation. And then she reaches the vocal run. It starts smooth and fluid, flowing effortlessly from one note to the next. Not rushed, not showy, perfectly controlled. Her voice moves with precision and emotion, climbing higher, bending, releasing, each transition clean, fearless, alive. Chills ripple through the room. You can see it on faces, eyebrows lifting, shoulders stiffening, breath catching involuntarily. A woman in the audience presses a hand to her chest. Someone shakes their head slowly, stunned. Another leans toward the person beside them, eyes wide, whispering something that doesn't need to be heard to be understood. The sound fills every corner of the space. Not just heard, but felt. On the judges' table, something remarkable happens. They look at each other, not to judge, but to confirm. One judge turns slowly, eyes locked on another, as if asking silently, "Are you hearing this too?" Another judge nods without realizing they're doing it. A third sits completely still, expression frozen in awe. The smirk is gone now, completely. The judge who once leaned back casually now leans forward, lips parted, eyes wide. Their pen rests untouched on the desk. There is no judgment left in their posture, only disbelief and respect colliding at once. She holds the run, then resolves it with precision, landing the note perfectly. No strain, no falter. Just control and power working in harmony. The audience can't contain it anymore. Gasps break free. A few hands rise instinctively, clapping before the song is even overstopping themselves out of respect, but unable to hide the reaction. Tears glisten in the eyes of strangers who didn't expect to feel this much, this fast. She moves into the final stretch now. This is the summit. Her voice soars, filling the room with confidence earned through every overlooked moment, every quiet doubt, every time she was told, directly or indirectly, that she didn't belong. This isn't anger. This is triumph. The last note rings out strong, sustained, flawless. She holds it just long enough to let it echo. Then she releases it. The music stops. Silence crashes down. For one heartbeat. Two, the kind of silence that follows something unforgettable. Then it happens. Someone stands. Then another. And another. Applause erupts, not politely, not cautiously, but powerfully, urgently, like the room can't stay seated any longer. A standing ovation spreads like a wave, row by row, until the entire audience is on its feet. The sound is overwhelming. Clapping, cheering, shouts of disbelief and praise colliding into one unstoppable roar. People smile through tears. Hands clap above heads. The energy surges, filling every space where doubt once lived. The judges stand too. All of them. The judge who once smirked remains standing, hands frozen mid-clap, face completely changed. There's no performance left in their expression, no defense. Just shock, speechless. She stands at center stage, breathing hard now not from fear, but from release. Her eyes widen slightly as she takes it all in. She wasn't expecting this. She hoped, but she didn't expect. The applause doesn't fade. It grows. The cameras catch everything, faces glowing with emotion, judges nodding in genuine admiration. The girl on stage finally realizing what she's done. She didn't just sing a song. She changed the room. When the applause finally begins to settle, it leaves behind something permanent. Respect. The kind that can't be taken back. She wipes a tear from the corner of her eye and smiles not triumphantly, but gratefully. Grounded, present, powerful in her quiet. This was the moment. The moment the narrative flipped. The moment assumptions collapsed. The moment judgment gave way to truth. They didn't think she belonged here. Now, no one in the room could imagine the stage without her. The applause lingers longer than anyone expects. It doesn't fade politely. It doesn't settle quickly. It hangs in the air, rolling over the stage again and again, as if the room itself is refusing to let the moment end. Cheers echo from every corner. Some voices chant her name. Others simply shout, unable to find words big enough to hold what they're feeling. She stands still at center stage. For a moment, she doesn't move at all. Her chest rises and falls rapidly now, breath-catching as the reality of what just happened finally reaches her. Her hands tremble not from fear anymore, but from release. From the weight of years lifting all at once. The judges sit back down slowly, still absorbing what they've witnessed. Then the feedback begins. The tone is different now. Gone is the casual detachment. Gone is the bored posture. The voices that speak next carry something new: respect, genuine surprise, careful honesty. One judge speaks first, choosing words more thoughtfully than before. They admit they didn't expect this. Not in the way it happened. Not with this level of control, emotion, and authority. Their voice softens as they talk about the depth in her performance, the way she commanded the stage without forcing it. Another judge follows, praising her musicality. Not just her voice, but her restraint, her timing, her understanding of when to hold back and when to let go. They call it maturity. They call it rare. Then the skeptical judge speaks. The room quiets again. This is the moment everyone feels. The judge, who smirked earlier, clears their throat. Their expression is no longer guarded. It's open, almost vulnerable. They admit, without excuse, that they were wrong. That they made assumptions. That they underestimated her before she ever sang. I owe you an apology, they say. Not dramatic. Not defensive. Just honest. They tell her that what she delivered wasn't just impressive. It was humbling. That it reminded them why this stage exists in the first place. Why talent deserves patience before judgment. The audience responds immediately. Cheers erupt again. Louder this time. Stronger. Affirming not just her performance, but the acknowledgement she earned. She presses a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Tears spill freely now. Not messy. Not uncontrollable. Real. She blinks through them, nodding gently as she listens. Her shoulders shake slightly as the emotion catches up with her. This isn't just praise. This is something deeper. This is validation. Years of being overlooked, of being quietly dismissed, of being told, without words, that she didn't quite fit. All of it collides with this moment, and for the first time, she doesn't have to fight against it. She's allowed to receive it. She thanks the judges softly. Her voice wavers, but it doesn't break. She thanks them for listening. She thanks the audience for believing. She thanks her family, her support system, the people who saw her long before this stage did. And when she speaks now, there is something unmistakable in her tone. Not pride, confidence, quiet, grounded, earned. She didn't prove them wrong with anger. She did it with excellence. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't relive the doubt aloud. She simply stands there, present in the moment, letting her work speak for itself. The audience begins chanting again, her name echoing through the room. Some clap rhythmically. Others wipe tears from their eyes. Strangers hug. The energy is electric, but also warm, human. This isn't just about talent anymore. It's about recognition, the kind that arrives late, but arrives honestly. She looks out over the crowd one more time, eyes shining. There's gratitude there, deep, sincere gratitude. But there's also something else now, belonging. She belongs on this stage. Not because someone allowed her to be there, but because she earned it with discipline, resilience, and grace. As she exits the stage, applause follows her like a current. Even backstage, it can still be heard muffled but powerful. She leans against the wall for a moment, closing her eyes, letting the reality settle fully into her bones. This was more than a performance. This was a moment reclaimed. The moment when judgment turned into listening. When doubt turned into respect. When quiet perseverance met undeniable truth. She walks forward now, not rushed, not overwhelmed, just steady. Because she knows something she didn't know before. She doesn't need permission to be great. She never did. Long after the applause fades, after the lights dim and the stage empties, moments like this continue to echo. Because what happened here wasn't just about a performance. It was about perception. Talent is underestimated every day, not because it's rare, but because it doesn't always announce itself the way people expect. It doesn't always look familiar. It doesn't always arrive loudly or confidently or wrapped in the packaging the world is comfortable with. Sometimes, talent stands quietly in the corner, waiting to be noticed. And too often, it's judged before it's heard. Prejudice isn't always obvious. It doesn't always shout. It doesn't always insult or exclude directly. Sometimes, it hides behind raised eyebrows, behind polite smiles, behind smirks that last just long enough to communicate doubt without taking responsibility for it. It shows up as low expectations, as assumptions, as decisions made too early. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because subtle judgment feels invisible to everyone except the person receiving it. For years, she carried the weight of that subtlety, not because people told her she couldn't, but because they acted like she wouldn't. Because they moved on too quickly. Because they listened halfway. Because they decided who she was before giving her the chance to show it. Moments like this matter because they interrupt that pattern. They force us to confront the quiet ways we judge others and the quiet ways we've been judged ourselves. They remind us that brilliance doesn't need permission to exist, but it does need space to be revealed. And when it finally is, it changes everything. This performance didn't just change a room, it challenged a mindset. It reminded everyone watching that assumptions are fragile and that real talent has a way of breaking through even the thickest layers of doubt. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with excellence. That's the power of moments like this. They don't shout back at judgment. They outgrow it. Never let someone else's expectations define your limits. Those expectations are often built on incomplete stories, surface impressions, and unconscious bias. They say more about the people holding them than the person standing in front of them. Your limits are not found in someone else's reaction. They're found in your willingness to keep going when no one is clapping yet. Sometimes the quietest person holds the loudest power. Power doesn't always enter a room confidently. Sometimes it walks in calmly, absorbs the tension, and speaks only when it has something undeniable to say. Sometimes power waits patiently until the right moment to rise. And when it does, it doesn't ask for approval. It commands attention. As the final note replays in slow motion, you can see it all again, the shift in the room, the realization on faces, the exact second when doubt dissolved into disbelief. The sound hangs in the air, pure and unwavering, carrying more than music. It carries proof that judgment can be wrong, proof that talent doesn't follow a script, proof that being underestimated doesn't disqualify you. It prepares you. The music fades into something lighter now, uplifting, hopeful, the kind of sound that suggests beginnings, not endings. The screen slowly darkens as the moment settles, giving the audience space to breathe, to reflect, to remember their own moments of doubt and their own untapped potential. And then the final words appear. Simple, steady, unapologetic. Talent doesn't need permission. It never did. Fade to black.